So there's something that you said, kind of an offhand comment, where you mentioned that the Heroine's Labyrinth is good for sort of more non-linear stories. But then the way it's laid out, it sounds like you're laying it out in a linear way, but maybe I'm misunderstanding that. So I'd love to hear you go into that some more.
So I believe that same thing with the hero's journey. There's the ideal, and the ideal is easiest to understand. Well, the easiest way to make to have anyone understand it is to set out an ideal version of it, and I think that's done linearly, at least with the hero's journey. When I started working on the Heroine's Labyrinth, I can't wait till the book comes out because I'm doing something very unique with story structure with it. I really was bothered by the idea of linear storytelling as a pure sense, because I feel like in a lot of stories it was out of order. That's true with the hero's journey too in some cases. There's themes that are skipped, there's themes that are out of order. It's really up to the writer to know what to do and how to handle the archetypes as they come up in the story. What I did in my book is I say this in the preface actually, is that I'm not a big fan of story structure. And when I was analyzing heroine-centric stories, it seemed like the archetypal power came to the heroine sometimes in a unique order. And I likened it to the turning of a tarot card, meaning you have a tarot card when it's presented to you has massive archetypal power loaded in it. It's full of symbolism. The symbols have meaning, and it's up to the fortune teller or the person reading the card to interpret that archetypal power as it relates to you, who's getting the reading done to them. I don't think it's that different in your stories. So to me, I write the book this way. Every chapter has a new tarot card that's flipped with like the Masked Minotaur is a card. The Labyrinth is a card. The Sacred Fire is a card. So each turning of the card is its own archetypal, self-contained power. And you, as a writer, have to interpret that as it pertains to your character. So it's almost like a tarot reading, but for your character. Here's the archetypal power here. Here's the archetypal power here. So to me, it is somewhat nonlinear. I felt it was my job as a writer of a nonfiction writer to present it in a way that was easiest to understand, with the caveat that it does not have to be in this order, or not all of these themes have to be present in your story. You could skip a theme, or as Brianna is pointing out, you can even include themes from like the hero's journey. These other themes could come in. So it's almost like you could take the Heroine's Labyrinth deck and the hero's journey deck, shuffle them together, and then start seeing what comes up in your story as you go. And I think now that I've written a story, and Brianna, now that you've written a story, that's how we synthesize our chapters anyway. I don't go into it saying, okay, this has to be this theme. It's kind of like a background app, and I'm imagining the theme as I would want to watch it, like in a movie or read it in a comic book panel. And then you start to write it, and the hero's journey or the Heroine's Labyrinth are like benchmarks. It's like, okay, maybe there should be. Does a mentor figure make sense? Yes, it does. I'm going to have a mentor figure, and then that character materializes. I have a mentor figure in Faraway Bird, and she's awesome.
I love that. Just a quick insert. I love thinking about it that way. Does insert trope make sense to the story?
Yeah.
And then
Well, and because when you're like in a tarot reading, the archetypal power comes up randomly. And yet the I hate saying fortune teller, that sounds like the 1800s or something, but the person doing
the reader, I don't know,
has to interpret that archetypal content in the narrative of the person who's getting the tarot reading done to them. It has to be contextualized. So to me, I think that's how writers synthesize their stories anyway. And I think that's why the hero's journey has repeated itself accidentally over multiple writers in different eras, different cultures, because they have followed this archetypal pattern as it comes up. So in terms of the order it has to be in, I don't think it has to be in any order. I wrote the book in what I think is the most logical order, but I made it clear in my book too that don't let logic ruin your storytelling. Follow the order that comes up, as the story progresses. What is the archetypal event that makes the most sense as you go?
Okay, we just got a super chat.
Oh,
perfect timing. Oh, Sable Phoenix again. Thank you so much, Sable Phoenix.
Sable's
You've been very generous.
It's Sable is basically just the fourth person in this conversation.
So yes, and Sable Phoenix was definitely liking the story as tarot, saying story as tarot. Where do you where you dream by Robert Olin Butler, one of the best books on plotting a story I've ever read. You all would probably love it.
I'm looking it up right now.
That already sounds right to me, because I define archetypes as something we recognize even in dreams. And that's what the title sounds like to me. And that's Sable Phoenix. That's awesome. That's an awesome recommendation.
I'll
interesting.
Load that up to look at on Amazon after this. Thank you very much for that recommendation.
Cool.
I'm gonna look that up right away. That's probably really good.
I'm trying to find it right now. But I kept searching. You have to search that whole thing. Oh, I found it. There you go. Because otherwise, it was just information about tarot was coming up. I'm like, no.
Well, I bet a lot of writers out there have run into this problem too, where they try to follow the hero's journey exactly, and it just ends up being frustrating. And to me, the more structured, if too much structure comes in, you are destroying your creativity. I think you need to rehearse and familiarize and understand these archetypes, the archetypes of the hero's journey, and now, at least in my opinion, the archetypes of the heroine's labyrinth. Internalize them, and then push them to the background, and then start to write your story. And then in some cases, you'll accidentally recreate one of these archetypes. And as you're rereading, once you recognize it as an archetype, build it out. Go in there and build that out, because it's natural to your story. It's organic. You did it on accident even. Build it out for its full power as far as within the reasonable limits of your story. But that happened to me several times, where I had these archetypes accidentally, and I was able to go back in and enhance them. And in every case, it paid off.
I love that. And that goes to something that I believe, which is that I feel that, well, it may depend on the kind of story you're telling, but especially someone like myself, I'm very interested in myth and telling stories that have a mythic feel to them. It seems to me that because I am quite convinced by this idea that these archetypes are, they're somehow connected to something deeper in our minds, to dreams, that kind of a thing, that I feel that for me as a storyteller, it's equally important that I be, I'm up here analyzing, understanding, all these different tools to use. It's as important that I'm here, that I'm connected with my own intuition and my own subconscious. Almost you could think about the masculine or feminine aspects of creativity kind of a thing, sort of, kind of. But it's just the point that that I have to be in tune with that, and I have to be able to listen to my soul and know what speaks to my soul, because that is going to end up resonating with people, I think.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And like that yin and the yang, I think, and I don't even think anyone would disagree with me on this, I think all of us are a little bit masculine and feminine to varying degrees anyway. Even very masculine people can have feminine aspects of their personality spectrum. You have to, I think you're right, you have to be in tune with where you're at in the story as it pertains to your characters, and then have the courage to draw from it, whatever that is, and then just run with that,